Once again, I want to welcome you into another where we answer your questions. Today, answering a very important question: what to expect when you have a case with a personal injury attorney. I'm here with attorney Chris Boober. Chris, I think this is such an important question to ask because there's so many misconceptions out there. That's one of the things I've learned in speaking with you. So many people, let's be honest, they have ideas and assumptions about what personal injury attorneys do and why they do it.
I think you're right. First off, thanks for doing this with me again. It's great to see you. And I'm excited to talk about this because I see the same, like you said, misconceptions, misunderstandings, worries, and concerns in my clients over and over. And I know that some of those are hurdles for them to even pursue claims sometimes. I know that when they come to me, they've already kind of had to get through these worries that they had or that other people are telling them. So I'd love to have an opportunity to get it out there and explain to people it's not as hard as you think. Your lawyer's going to do the majority of the work and give them an idea of the timetable and what to expect.
Can I throw a word at you that I'm sure you hear all the time and just get your response?
Sure.
Ambulance chaser.
If you want to call me an ambulance chaser, I'm happy to be an ambulance chaser because you know who I'm trying to beat to the ambulance? I'm trying to beat the insurance company because the insurance company is going to jam you every time, every chance they get. And so if you call me, if I'm close enough to that ambulance that I get you to call me before you call the insurance company, I feel confident based on my experience. I don't want to say guarantee because you can't guarantee anything in life, but I can tell you based on my experience, you're going to get treated better if I'm doing the talking for you. And on top of it, it just eliminates the hassle. I mean, imagine how lousy it is. Your car is messed up. You're missing time from work. You're having to get this medical care that you didn't expect. It's upending your life. And at the same time, you've got to pretend to be a lawyer or try to understand what's going on with an insurance company. And the only advice you're getting is from the insurance company. They're not your friends. They're not there to help you. So call me an ambulance chaser. I'm proud to be an ambulance chaser. I don't have any problem with that.
I love that. Own it. Just own it. And that point about beating them to the doctor, this is something we've really dialed in on. If somebody's just been in an accident, they're not thinking about their attorney. They're not thinking about the case. They're probably in pain. And you talk about what they should do if they've just been in an accident. What are some of those first steps they need to take?
One of the most important things is you need to call a police officer. You've got to call the police to the scene because the police officer basically becomes your unpaid investigator. The police officer is going to determine who's at fault. The police officer is going to interview any witnesses and get their information. And the police officer is going to prepare a police report. And so if I call an insurance company and there's no police report, the insurance company is going to go on what their insured tells them or maybe what I'm telling them. But if I can send them a police report that says this other guy's at fault, he got the ticket, then we've crossed the first hurdle. Because the first hurdle is two parts of any case. One, you've got to prove that the other person is responsible or liable. And the second is you've got to prove your injuries. So if we have a police officer who gives the person a ticket, that gives the insurance company something to rest their hat on that says, look, this officer came to the scene and investigated this and decided this person's at fault. And getting the ticket can also be a big deal because if the person pleads guilty, they can't come back in the civil case, in the personal injury case, and try to deny what happened because they've already pled guilty to it. So it's very important to have a police officer involved, preparing a report. They also gather information for witnesses. I had a case just 3 or 4 weeks ago in Chesterfield County where it was a he said, she said, and the defendant's version of what had happened was just off the rails. And luckily, the police officer had gotten the information from a witness who saw the whole thing and said, no, that's not how it happened at all. It happened how the plaintiff is saying it happened, not how the defendant's saying it happened. But based on what the defendant was saying, the insurance company had turned us down and made us go to trial. And I don't know if we would have won without that witness. And my client was hurt. She went in the ambulance. If the police officer hadn't gotten that witness information, we wouldn't have had it. We might have lost the case. So it's key to get a police officer. And then the second thing is to listen to your body. Some people know right away and they have real trauma immediate and they need to seek attention. Other folks say to the officer offers an ambulance, and maybe they say, I don't need an ambulance. They don't want to use up the resources. And that's fine. You have to do what your body is telling you. But in my experience, the second day, the third day is when it really starts hurting. And you really want to go to work. You don't want to miss time. You don't want this to become a big hassle that's going to take over your life. And so maybe you delay treatment. And if you delay treatment, the first thing the insurance company will say to me is, Chris, this could not have been that big an injury or that important because they didn't treat for a week, or they didn't treat for 2 weeks, or they didn't treat for a month. And how do I know something didn't happen in the meantime? So listen to your body. I'm not a doctor. You're not a doctor. Most of my clients aren't doctors. Just go see a doctor and make sure you're okay. If you're okay, all you did was waste a little time and you saw your general practitioner. But it's important to get that evaluation so that we have a baseline for where you are. And you could tell the doctor from the top of your head, is what I tell my client, to the bottom of your feet, every single body part that's hurting. Because another problem that we often have is, let's say my main injury is a shoulder. My shoulder is just killing me. Well, my knee hurts too, and my ankle hurts too. But the big thing is my shoulder. And it doesn't really make its way into the medical records because we're all concentrating so hard on the shoulder. And then 3 months into my treatment, I say, well, my knee's been bothering me, my ankle's been bothering me. And they may be serious things, but I've only really started to pay attention to them now that the shoulder has subsided. And that creates another problem because the insurance company is going to wonder, why weren't these treated earlier? Why aren't they in the previous medical records? So it's important to make a record of how you were feeling, and what injuries you suffered. And the third thing, and then I will let you ask another question, is get some photographs of the car if you can. If you're doing well enough, just take a few pictures. I had a case 3 or 4 months ago in Richmond General District Court, and the question was who was in what lane. And my client had pictures before the police officer arrived, before the cars were moved, and we were able to tell where they were in the lane. And the judge spent a great deal of time reviewing those and questioning the officer, and they won the case for us.
That's fantastic. So I'll just be brutally honest. You've described 3 things that I probably wouldn't have done. I mean, first thing, if I'm in the accident with says, hey, let's not, we don't need a police officer. Let's just exchange insurance information, right? I mean, I don't want to deal with a police officer. So that's the first thing. Then the last thing I ever want to do, Chris, is go to a doctor if I'm not just in extreme pain, right? And even though I have a camera in my pocket, because we all do, I probably wouldn't think about documenting. So that's why
because
it's so
you concentrate on your injuries. Yeah, It's not, and often the officers take pictures, but sometimes they don't. And those pictures are really, really helpful. It just depends on how busy the officer is, how serious it is, how many officers respond. So having those photographs is very important.
And then, so once I've done that, I've got a police report, I've gone to the doctor, I've taken pictures. When do I say I need a personal injury attorney in that process?
I say you call right away. I mean, I've had people call as they were in the injury, and that's usually people who I've represented in the past. And they say, "Hey, Chris, this has just happened to me. What do I do?" So the reason that you want to get somebody to represent you early is because the insurance company is going to get involved early. And you know what I'm going to say now. My motto is I tell all my clients, never give a recorded statement. And the insurance company wants you to give a recorded statement because they want to use leading questions to try to twist things in their direction. They're not there to help you. They don't owe any duty to you. And you haven't seen the police report. You don't know exactly what happened. You may even be confused about what happened. And then if you tell them the wrong thing, that sticks with us, and we have to undo that throughout the course of the case. So I always tell people, you worry about getting better. Let me worry about the insurance company. Let me worry about all the other issues. Just give me a call, sign up, and I will take care of all that for you so you can concentrate on getting better.
Yeah, and I think, again, dealing with perceptions here, my thought process is I don't go to the doctor unless I'm majorly injured. I don't call an attorney unless I feel like I'm being wronged. So it's down the line. It's after the fact. Like I don't feel like I've been treated fairly, so then I call Chris. That's backwards, right?
Well, it is backwards, but you have hit on something that happens all the time. I tell people, it seems like at least once a week, if insurance companies treated people better, I would be out of business because they usually they try to deal with the insurance company, and then eventually it gets to the point where they realize, oh, they're not just going to pay my medical bills just because I submit them, or they're not just going to fix my car the way I want it to. They want to send it to a different body shop, or they think that estimate is too high, and they're not going to give me a rental car. And there was med pay available on this coverage that I didn't even know about, that they didn't tell me about. So often people wait to come to me because they don't want the hassle of even talking to me. Everybody has busy lives. Everybody has responsibilities. Nobody wants to blow up what might be a small thing into a bigger thing. But what I tell people often is, every single time I've represented somebody who had a torn rotator cuff, they were seen in the emergency room and they were told they had a strained sprain. And that's the diagnosis every time, because the doctor can't magically see inside your shoulder, and the doctor's relying on time. And then when it doesn't get better, your doctor sends you to physical therapy. And then when physical therapy fails because you have a rotator cuff tear, they finally give you an MRI. And, this may be 2 or 3 months down the road. And you don't know necessarily that that's how it goes, but I do know that that's how it goes. And another thing about working with your doctors and working with an attorney is, I was just on the phone yesterday with a client who I hadn't talked to for a couple of weeks, and was just checking in with her, and she was miserable. And she said, my back is killing me. My favorite thing to do is read. I can't even read right now. I'm in such pain. And I said, well, what are you doing about it? She said, well, I don't think there's anything I can do about it. And I've learned that the doctor only knows what you tell the doctor. So the doctor says, hey, here's some pain pills, go to physical therapy. And when they don't hear from you, they think you're getting better. If I call my client's doctor, he would say, oh, she's doing fine. But she was miserable. And so I encouraged her to go back and talk to her doctor and say, the pain medication you're giving me isn't working. The physical therapy isn't working. The torso cast that they had given her was causing problems for her. But they don't know that if you don't advocate for yourself. And people who haven't done this before don't know to do that. So it's helpful to have somebody almost as a liaison to understand the way the doctor's looking at it and the way the injured person is looking at it, to make sure you get the care you need.
Right. And then the other thing I'm thinking is, in my mind, I'm thinking, if I call an attorney, that's going to slow everything down. I need my car fixed today. And now I've got an attorney involved, so I'm not going to see any resolution now for months or years.
The difference between me and a non-lawyer client is, the insurance company knows I can sue them. And they know that I know the rules, and they know that I know what they have to do. They know that I know what policies are available, what they should be providing, what they should be doing. And the people who are hurt don't know that. And so they don't know the right questions to ask. They don't know the rights that they are owed to have it enforced. And they don't understand sometimes, let's say the person who hits you doesn't have insurance. They don't even know to call their own insurance. Because your insurance protects you against the uninsured or the underinsured, and people don't even know that. So don't try to figure all these things out. Like I said, when I have a medical need, I put myself in the hands of a professional, of an expert. Call somebody, call me, call another personal injury attorney, call somebody who knows the system, knows how to work with insurance companies, so you get what you deserve. We all pay for insurance. We're required to by state law. Why not use it?
This is a question you always bring up with me, and it's so funny. I think it's programming, Chris. Like,
it is.
If I'm using it, somehow I'm not responsible, or my rates are going to go up or something else. So we're programmed.
But that's the big worry. And I've yet to have a client, even who used uninsured or underinsured motorist coverage, I've yet to have somebody call me back and say, Chris, you were wrong. They raised my rates because of that accident. I don't think it happens. I don't know if it's a wives' tale, if it's misinformation that got spread around from years ago, but I just don't see it happen. And you've got the insurance there. That's what it's there for when you have these catastrophic things. So get what you deserve. It's not like you're trying to get a gain or you're trying to gain the system. You're just trying to get back what you've lost. And I think that's what people are sometimes embarrassed by. I've had people say, I'm not a lawsuit person. I don't know what that means. That means you have rights and you have a product that you pay for that you just refuse to use because you're somehow embarrassed to use it. I don't understand that mentality at all.
Yeah, it's societal programming. I really think, or maybe it's this embedded thing that the insurance companies want. Because I know I feel it absolutely. So
Well,
you're
and
going.
you also know there's going to be a big hassle involved. And I
Mhm.
think that's part of it. It's just getting over the hump of saying, all right, I'm going to make an appointment. I'm going to talk to a lawyer. Will I get to run around in his office? Will it just be more run around and it's just easier to deal with the insurance company? It's not. If you call, you're going to talk to me. You're not going to talk to a paralegal. You're not going to talk to an assistant. You're not going to talk to an associate attorney. I'm going to work on your case. We're going to get to work on it right away. And we're going to take all the hassle out of it for you to the extent we possibly can.
And are you pushing to settle a case? How do you decide? What's that process? Settle, lawsuit? How does that work?
Well, what we do is at first I tell clients it's going to feel like nothing's happening because nothing is going to be happening on my end until they're done with treatment. And I tell clients I could call the insurance company on most any case any day and get some amount of money. $50, $100. There's some amount of money they would pay just to shut me up and to shut them up right that day. But you don't want to do that. You don't want to settle your case before you've reached what the doctors call maximum medical improvement. That means they've gotten you to the point, the maximum point they're going to get you. And then at that point, we just have to assess where you are and what you may have lost. But they don't anticipate any future treatment. And so we have a good idea of what your loss was, what your medical bills were, what the pain and suffering and inconvenience was while you healed. Then we get all the medical bills, all the medical records together, and we send them to the insurance company. We start negotiating. So, in terms of are we working towards settlement, most cases settle just because it takes so long to get to trial. And most of the time you can get to a number that even if it isn't the best number, the client wants to take the number. So 94%, 95%, depending on what study you read, end up settling. And so we work to try to settle the case because it's quicker. It's a sure thing as well. You never know what you're going to get when you go to court. So if you can settle a case, you do work towards that. Sometimes we can't settle the case, and then we end up going to trial.
I got to tell you, the idea of trial, it feels like another pain point for me. Like another, am I going to be on the stand testifying? Is this Perry Mason, right? Are they going to catch me in something? I mean, it just feels like such a long, drawn out, painful process.
And that's the thing that I have to try to remember because that's what I do. That's what I enjoy doing. I've gotten to the point, when I was a young lawyer, I was nervous every time I went to court. Now, a lot of the judges I went to law school with, I know them. I've been in front of them for 20, 25 years. And so it's a place where I'm calm and I feel confident and secure and powerful. But I have to remember that that's the exact opposite feeling for my client. They stay awake worrying about it. When we say we're going to trial, the first thing, and it took me a while to understand this, the first thing that I tell them when I say, all right, we weren't able to settle the case, we're going to have to file suit, or it's been 2 years, and if we don't file suit now, the case will go away. So we're going to have to file suit. They think, it took me a while to realize that they think that means we can't settle the case. And I want to make it clear, it does not mean that. We still keep trying to settle. We get a different adjuster who may have more experience and more settlement authority, so it may be easier to settle with them. I've had cases often when you file suit and another adjuster looks at it, they say, well, I think we made a mistake not settling this. Let's talk about it again. And then it settles, within weeks or before they even have to respond, which is 21 days. You hear from an adjuster because they don't want to hire an attorney unnecessarily. And they say, what if we put 10,000 or 15,000 more on this case? And I'd say, yeah, that's what we were looking for. We just couldn't get it from the other person. So it definitely doesn't mean you're going to have to go to trial and you're going to have to go through all this horrible process. But in getting there, you do have to go through the discovery process. And so the discovery process, we exchange interrogatories, which are questions that are answered under oath. We answer them. The defendant answers them. We request documents from them. They do the same to us. And then that leads to a deposition. So a deposition, that's probably the most testifying that most clients do.
Okay.
And I always tell them it's going to be so much easier than this preparation session. I had a preparation session in a workers' comp case, and it was a complicated case because the man was working on a piece of equipment that was difficult for me to understand, and it was very specialized. And we spent a couple of hours in the days before the deposition getting ready. And then the other side didn't know anything about the machine, didn't know the questions that we were so worried about, didn't ask any of those things. And it went very easily for my client because we were so prepared. So it's not as though you're ever going to walk into this unprepared. Every client I've ever had, I tell them this deposition is going to be easier than you think. And they always tell me it was easier than I thought. I didn't sleep last night. I don't care what you said. I was still nervous. But it goes great because the only thing that you can do to lose the case, and that's everybody's worry, is I'm going to say one thing, and that's going to cost me the whole case. To my mind and experience, the only thing you could say is this accident didn't happen. And unless you say this accident didn't happen or I wasn't hurt, it's going to go okay. And often after the deposition, that's when we start talking about settlement again, because they know all the answers to the questions that they're asking. It's a chance for their defense attorney to eyeball my client. They want to see how they present, how they're going to come across to a jury. Do they get rattled? Are they overly nervous? Do they seem confident? Do they seem like they're telling the truth? And then they do a report back to the insurance company based on the experience they had, and they recommend a settlement range. And often cases end up settling following that.
Yeah, and I feel like if they've watched this video and the education that you put out, the odds that we get to the trial probably go way down, or in the trial that they win the case if they followed the simple advice you've given today, right? Call the police.
I definitely think so.
Yeah.
If you have photographs, if you call the police officer, if you don't give a recorded statement, if you keep up with your medical care, those are the airtight cases. And when they see that they don't have anything to work with, they're going to settle the case. If they've got a recorded statement where you've got some contradictory facts out there, or you give them any excuse, a delay in treatment or anything like that, that gives them a little something to hang their hat on, that's when the case becomes harder to settle, because then the adjuster's saying, well, I don't know if I have to pay value for this because maybe they'll get less because of these problems.
Yeah, very good. Anything else you want to share about what people should look to, or what it's like to deal with a personal injury attorney like yourself?
Well, the next step, let's say you go to the deposition and we're unable to settle the case. There's another process that we can get involved in. I'm preparing for one of these in a couple of weeks. It's called a mediation. And the parties agree and choose a mediator who's an independent third party. Usually it's a retired judge. And the reason we like to use retired judges is because they've tried more cases than anybody has. They try cases every single day. So I'm trying to guess the estimate of your personal injury case, right? I'm trying to guess based on my past experience, what I've seen juries do, what I think juries will do. But the nice thing is I wear rose-colored glasses, of course. I see everything that's good about my client. I see everything that's strong about our case. So when you go to mediation, both parties meet and we go back and forth with the judge. And the judge has read all the medical records and all the evidence and knows all about the case. And the judge gets to know me, gets to know my client, gets to know what they're looking for, and then gives us an idea. Here's what the other side's saying. Here's what the negatives are about your case. Here's what I think is really positive about your case. Here's what I think, based on my 20, 25 years of experience, that a jury is likely to return to your case. And sometimes that's higher than what I think it should be. Sometimes that's lower than what I think it should be. And the insurance company has the same experience. They come in wanting to pay $50,000 and the judge says, no, this case is worth more than that, and you're going to have to pay more than that. And so there's another process there that people can have security about, where you have control. The scary thing about the trial is you don't have control. The control is in the hands of those 7 people, and they're complete strangers. We don't know what kind of mood they're in that day. We don't know whether they hate ambulance chasers. We don't know what their situation is, but we know none of them want to be there. We know that for sure. So the nice thing about mediation after negotiation is it's an opportunity still to control your fate. At some point, I end up saying to the client, this amount of money is sitting on the table in front of you. We will have it in 2 weeks. The judge thinks that's the right amount of money for this case. If you say yes, we'll settle it right now for that. And some clients say no. And sometimes we don't get it done on the mediation date, and we still continue to negotiate. The mediator still tries to help us. But I want people to know that you don't always have to go to trial. It doesn't always take months for things to do. And it's not so overwhelming that you just have to push it aside and say, I just don't want to deal with it. I'll take whatever I'm getting. I just can't deal with this. I'm hurting and I don't feel good. There's people out there who want to help you. I'm one of them. And that's why we're set up the way we are. You don't have to pay me out of pocket. I only recover if I recover for you. And the reason that's done is because we know you don't want to add insult to injury when you've had this accident and you're worried about all these other things. And then all of a sudden you've got to pay a lawyer's bill too. So it's a free consultation. You talk to me. I said it before. I feel like a broken record, but I don't see why you wouldn't do it. All it takes is time.
Yeah, and time you probably have if you're convalescing from an injury or something like that. So
Absolutely.
At least make the free call. Why not?
All you've got to do is give me 10 or 15 minutes. And if you don't like what I have to say, or you don't like me, or you think you don't need me and you just want to take some free advice, that's great too. But I'd rather see you get what you deserve than just come out of a bad situation even worse because you didn't know what you deserved.
Well, since you're talking about the way you work and contingency fees, I'll deal with one other preconception, and that is it's not worth it after the attorney takes their fee because I only get what I would have gotten in the first place.
I have never had a case where somebody came to me. First off, they usually don't come to me with an offer from the insurance company. But even if they do come to me with an offer from the insurance company, I've never had a case where I didn't increase it by more than 33%. And I know a client I have and I'm still representing, he's one of the few clients, but he asked me this up front, and I think it was based on a past experience he had. Because there are situations where the outstanding medical bills, if you don't have health insurance or you have a situation where you have to repay it, might eat up so much that between the medical bills getting paid and the attorney bills getting paid, the client ends up getting less than the attorney. And I've worked places where it ended up happening like that sometimes. Just as a personal policy, I always reduce my fee in those cases. So I've never taken a check that's more than my client got. And usually I reduce it by even more to make sure that they're getting a little bit more. Because one, they have to get something out of it in order for them to want to settle. And second, you just want to feel at the end of the day like you gave them a fair shake. And I think the clients appreciate that. And if that's a concern that somebody who's watching this has, they can know that that's not going to happen if they talk to me.
Well, and I know, having talked to you several times, you're a true believer. You're in this. You've experienced an injury yourself. You know what they're going through. This is not just a paycheck for you.
That's exactly right. It's something I want to use this ability. I don't represent corporations. I don't represent insurance companies. I'm not in-house counsel at a business. I am an individual who relies on people who are hurt to come to my office and put their faith in me. And that's what I want to do. I want to help individual people who have been hurt and be part of the process of making them better, helping them heal, helping make them whole in terms of getting the car repaired, getting their lost wages, getting their pain and suffering, and putting them on the road to getting ahead in the future, and to make that whole process easier for them so that they know they can contact me and I'm doing the worrying. I'm sweating all the small stuff so that they don't have to.
Yeah, and you're making the process easier now by putting out these videos so that if they're in an accident, they know what to do and they're prepared already and their situation is better without ever even calling you. So I think it's awesome.
That's what I'm hoping for. And I appreciate your help with it. That's for sure.
Yeah, so glad to do it, Chris. It's always a pleasure talking to you. If they call, you're going to pick up the phone, right?
Absolutely. It's going to be me. If I'm doing something else and you get the receptionist, she's going to send me a text. She's going to send me an email. She's going to walk down the hall and find me if I'm on the phone. But I'm going to get back to you as quickly as I can. I promise that.
All right. Fantastic, Chris.
Thank you.